Hello and welcome. This is going to be a podcast about ABA to both try and help anybody that might be looking into this for work, currently is doing this for work, or any of the caregivers and parents out there who are trying to figure out how to navigate it a little bit better. Let's be real, this is not an easy process. It is not what your ideal situation with your child probably looked like. I think it is safe to assume that most people, whether they adopt their child or they give birth to their child, I think it's safe to assume most people do not expect this to happen. I don't think most kids are expected to have autism since they're young, or any kinds of behavioral struggles. It's a hard journey. It's hard to accept for the parents and the caregivers, and maybe even some of the siblings sometimes. I think one of the most important parts to making ABA effective for you and your family is understanding what exactly is being done by your technician when they are in session, and how you can better help your technician help your loved one. So, hello, I am Miss B, and I have been doing ABA therapy in home with clients for about a year now. It is my favorite job I've ever had. I love it even on the hard days. And this week has been a hard week for me, but it was still a really good week. So let's get into it. I think for the opening topic, I would like to do is just kind of a basic summary of what ABA is and how it helps your children. So, for most tuning in, you probably already have at least an idea that ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. You probably have done some of your own research or gotten at least some insight from medical professionals. Some of you may even know other parents that have experienced this, and that always makes the experience a little bit better. When you know you're not alone in it and you have other people who really have any experience with it, it gives you hope, and it makes you feel like, oh, maybe there is a way this could work. Maybe it can get better. So what ABA does is you are basically helping a child to avoid their maladaptive behaviors, which would be their unwanted, unpleasant behaviors. There are many different examples of this. Some children have biting, scratching, licking, hair pulling. Some have aggression in different ways, where it could be slapping. Again, we have biting, scratching. There are so many different things that could fall into these categories. Some children struggle with hurting themselves, which is self-injurious behavior. This can include the hitting. This can include head thrashing. Many children in ABA struggle with tantrums or meltdowns. These can have varying degrees depending on your kid. Some children have struggles with verbalizing in general. Some children have trouble verbalizing a need or a want for something or asking for help. Some children have trouble transitioning from one thing to another or from one place to another. Some children need help with recognition of objects or animals or shapes, numbers, letters, any basic things they might encounter in their day-to-day life, or any words they might use, anything they might see in a video or learn in school. There are many other examples of behaviors that could be worked on, and the main goal of ABA is to help your child to focus and learn better and to help with their coping strategies so that their adult life is better. Because if we start now, we have a better chance than allowing the unwanted maladaptive behaviors to keep growing. We would rather redirect that and shape that to be better so that the child really just has an overall better experience in their lifetime. It isn't fun to get so frustrated you want to throw a tantrum and hurt yourself for anybody. It isn't ideal for one to get so angry that they're hitting their friends or themselves again, or engaging in property destruction and destroying their things or others. So the goal is always really just to make the child's life better and help improve their reactions to what life can throw at them. And in turn, this does help the caregivers and parents' life become a little easier as well. With all of that said, this is not an easy or overnight process. It takes time and consistency. If your technician is coming into your home or in a clinic, because some do it that way, and that's cool too. If your technician is coming into session and working with your kiddo and they are being consistent and they are teaching you the strategies they are using, and you are not using the same strategies, and you keep up with reinforcing negative behavior, it's not going to work the way that anyone would want. That inconsistency breaks the boundary of what is okay and what is not. In my experience so far of doing this for about a year, my biggest hurdle has often been the parents not abiding by the care plan that the BCBA and I have helped to create for them. And they are basically either ignoring what we are suggesting and instructing them to do and doing what they did before. Usually this is reinforcing the negative behaviors and rewarding it if they're realizing they're doing it or not. So far, I've had a lot of experience where the parent is very clearly overwhelmed with something. So the kid is getting upset, screaming, throwing a tantrum, throwing things, crying, maybe hitting themselves, stuff like that. And many of the parents will give their child access to the TV, access to their tablet, access to one of the parents' phones, And that is like one of the biggest rewards you could give the child in these instances, creating a harder environment for your technician and BCBA to go into to help you. Because, yes, the goal is that you want the tantrum to end. You want the screaming, the hitting, the throwing or breaking of any objects. You want that to stop. That is the goal, yes. But you do not want to gain that goal by giving them one of their most preferred objects. So now they're learning that if they do that, that they will get what they want. And they will be given cookies, your tablet or TV, your phone. I have had multiple children as clients so far also who they're just on the TV like all day, and that is part of why they do not want to pay attention to anything I'm doing, because either the parents are sitting in the room with me and will not turn it off. I've even had instances where I turn it off when they walk away because I'm trying to gain the child's attention, and the parent will be like, "Why is this off?" and turn it back on. And the child immediately just disengages with me and goes back to the TV. I've had instances where the child is on a tablet, a phone, and watching TV all at the same time. And the parents are wondering why their child has a really hard time focusing and keeping their attention to one thing, and are seemingly unaware that they have completely taught the child that. None of this is said as an attack on any parents. I think a lot of them are very overwhelmed and stressed out and unsure what to do. Because, again, as I said in the beginning, this was not the plan. This was not the idea most people would have in mind of what they would be doing for their child when they were having their child. So I understand the frustration, the confusion, the struggle. This is just meant to hopefully help any parents out there trying to figure out, what can I do to make ABA work better for my child? How can I help the therapist and the BCBA who is helping my child? How can I make that a better process for everyone involved? Because it really requires all of us as a team to be working together. Going back to the first client that I ever had, it was a 3-year-old boy, and he was not very verbal. He did not say many words. He was a sweet little kid. His mom always had the TV on. If she would get out of the room, or sometimes would have to go pick up a sibling, and I was there with grandma, I would turn the TV off and he would pay attention so well. Or I would put on videos he wasn't watching all the time. Like, I would try some Miss Rachel because he didn't watch that as much. Or I would try some Sesame Street because he wasn't really watching that from what I had seen him watching. He would engage so well if I was engaging with him with these videos and not just putting it on as background filler noise. But most times mom would come back, she would immediately just turn it back on and then be walking away on her phone, not engaging with her child, just on her phone, not talking to him. and making my job a little more difficult by putting on the TV and putting me in a place where I feel like I can't turn it back off, and it was not helping. And that is another point that I have seen and wanted to share, is that a lot of the parents are not engaging with their children, or it is just very obvious that they never play with them. And that's, I've had so many I've had so many clients that are horrible at sharing, and it usually becomes very aware very quickly that the child is not really around other children. Their main person they're around is their parents, maybe their grandparents or siblings, or like that's usually the dynamic I've seen. And if nobody is playing with that kid, so they're always doing independent play, they're going to be bad at sharing. They never have to share. They're going to be grabbing their toys out of your hands. They're going to be throwing a tantrum. So you give them their toys back, especially if every time they do that, you're giving it to them because you want them to stop. And it's sad, because there's a better way. I don't think most people would want to be the cause of their child struggling in such ways as this. I think most parents would want to help their kid instead of hinder them. And I know it's not always easy, and it can be confusing, especially if you don't know, or if you're new to this and just finding out that ABA exists and there's hope and help out there. And yes, you could be involved. You can get involved in whatever the technician's doing to a degree. But don't try and run the session for the technician. Like, if the technician is asking your child something, you shouldn't be basically repeating the same exact thing, like the child didn't hear the technician, or like the technician was asking it wrong. That's not exactly helpful or giving the technician instructional control, which they need to help your child. I have actually had a few parents that will try and run the session for me, so much to a point that I was warned about it beforehand going in. Like, hey, don't let her walk all over you, don't let him walk all over you. They're gonna be saying a lot of things like it's their time, but this is your time. You need to be the focus for the kid. And even with that warning, it was pretty shocking how some of these parents were doing that. It almost made it feel like, well, what am I even here for? You think you've got this. You don't really. You're actually teaching your kid some pretty bad attention span with multiple devices on. Like this specific instance I'm thinking about right now was a mom that was really trying to run my session. Like, it felt almost like she had this insecurity that people around her think her kid is stupid, but her kid's really smart and awesome. But she was teaching the child a lot of negative behaviors, probably without meaning to, like I've said. And one of those specific behaviors was that this child has two tablets and always had the TV on when I first started with them. If the child was not looking at the TV, they were on the tablet. And if that tablet died, they would go and try and get the other tablet. And mom was not denying access. And if I denied access in the beginning, she would just look at me weird, like, where did it go, and seem annoyed. At first, this kid would slightly throw a tantrum. It was not really bad. It was just kind of some crying, like fake crying or whining. I wasn't very concerned. I know it's different when it's your kid because, especially when you're a mom, it's like you can kind of feel it in your chest. It's like you physically feel when your child is crying, and it can be very frustrating and overwhelming. But that's also something that could be used to help the child see you coping and what your coping skills are. And you could just take some deep breaths, and then your kid's going to pick up on that instead of picking up on how you're overwhelmed and you're anxious and angry, because they pick up on that. And yeah, I don't know if it's just something about the generation that is growing up right now, where most of the parents I deal with are like mid 20s to mid 30s, and they basically all have their children constantly on one of their devices. And I'm not against children using their devices, but I also think that's one of our strongest tools to utilize. So why would you put them on it all the time? So then when I want to use it, it's less enticing. Or when I want to use it, your kid will not even let me touch the device. They will not share it because you're always sticking your kid on a device and ignoring them basically to be on your own device. And most parents won't let their kid touch their device, so they're learning that from them as well. And one of my least favorite reactions to me or the BCBA pointing out that, hey, they have their device a little too much during session, or like, hey, they were on the device when we got there, so they're not responding now because it was taken away, is the parents that very clearly had them on it the entire day basically before I got there. And then they take it right before we get there, so then the child is just throwing a tantrum and either pushing me or telling me to leave. I've even had instances where the parents very clearly told the child that I was the reason that they could not have their device right now. Remember when I said before, we're on the same team? We all want the same goal for your child to do better than when I met them. That is not helping. I have thought about making this podcast for a while, and I'm at least a little nervous still because it's a sensitive topic, but I decided I would at least try because the main goal is to share information from the other side as someone who is going in and seeing the behaviors and seeing how one of the most common struggles is almost always the parents not being consistent, whether they made up a rule and they're changing their own rule that they made within a day, 2 days, a week, just deciding it didn't work, just going back on their own word, or they're given basically a plan for how the session will go, how the day will go, how the routine should go by me and the BCBA working together. And they're not following that either, because there are multiple houses I know I have gone into within this year where there were just points I was like, why am I even here? It feels like no one's listening to me. And of course, I'm never going to say that out loud. That's very rude. That's not going to help, right? That might just start an argument. And that's not what I want at all. I just want to help any kid that I meet that I am destined to help. And I just hope that the parents involved are willing to do the same, really. Because whether you looked into ABA on your own or it was suggested to you by whoever, really, the goal at the end of the day is for your child's life to be improved and their coping skills to be improved, their listening to be improved, and them to basically gain a friend along the way that they trust. Because, yeah, we're clearly adults, we're not their age, but we become one of their best friends, and they will be so happy to see us when it's a consistent client. They will run up to us, they will come up to our car and wait for us to come in the door. They will open the door with a huge smile on their face. They will hug us, they will sometimes kiss our cheeks, hold our hands, sit in our laps. They will tell us they love us. And it's great. It's one of the best parts of this job. So I hope I didn't ruffle any feathers. Because again, this was not said to do so. This is just something I felt like the world needed. Anyone who is looking for this side, anyone who is looking for information on how they can help their technician and their BCBA, really, anyone who's looking for that. I know some parents do more research than others, and this is for any of those people who happen to wander by. Maybe you're not someone who necessarily needed it, but maybe you know someone who does. And I think this was just helpful information for those people to have, that I wanted to be out there as kindly and calmly as I could share it. Because, yeah, it is. It can be really frustrating when this is happening. If this helps any other technicians just starting out with a new kid, or maybe any technicians that have been with a kid for a while and are struggling because they heard it or the parents of their kiddos heard it. I felt like this was just something I should do. I think it's a good perspective for anyone looking for it. So, yeah, I'm Miss B, and thank you for listening. See you next time.